My guest today is Maxime Lamothe-Brassard. Maxime started his career in cybersecurity as part of the Canadian intelligence apparatus, where he worked in positions ranging from development of cyber defense technologies, counter computer network exploitation, and counterintelligence. After his time in the government, Maxime was an early employee at Crowdstrike before joining the security ranks at Google, where he eventually joined Google X and became one of the founding members of Chronicle Security. In 2018, Maxime left Chronicle to found LimaCharlie, where he currently serves as CEO. Thanks for being with us on the show today, Maxime.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. I really wanted to talk to you on the show about some ideas that came out of a talk you gave at the Mission Control Security Conference. You spoke at a very high level about some fundamental problems in a way that most of us in the industry are approaching cybersecurity, almost like a broken thought model. I thought it was very insightful and would love to dive into it.
That sounds good.
All right. So one of the first things from your talk that jumped out at me was when you said, and I'm ad-libbing here, that most of us in this industry are confusing high-level desires with products. I thought it was a really astute observation. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the industry has gotten used to thinking in acronyms, right? There's kind of a historical reasons, right? Meaning that cybersecurity was not born on, today and kind of taken a whole organization that makes sense today. It was born out of a time where even IT was really, really obscure. Most people didn't understand technology at all. And then kind of over time, slowly kind of, became a more of a thing and got defined. And what that means is that a lot of the things that today we want to do, historically, at one point in time, those things were, secret sauce, or they were, really, super secret, or they were cutting edge. And that's perfectly natural. But it also means that because they evolved that way, that the industry and analysts in the industry and everybody got used to thinking about those as a specific acronym, right? Like they got used to thinking, hey, I need to automate stuff. Okay, this is a new requirement at one point in time. What do you mean, automate between different platforms and orchestrate stuff? Okay, how are we going to do this? Well, we need something new, cutting edge, brand new thought, right? And let's call this SOAR. And okay, SOAR is the bucket. Let's put things into SOAR. And that made sense. You can kind of also think a little bit about it like the Gartner hype cycle, right? Where, new things have like early adopters, and then a ton of companies jump like on the bandwagon and like build products. And then over time, people start to understand what the actual value behind those products are, right? And so I'm just picking SOAR as one example. I'm not picking on SOAR in general. But so there's kind of a phase now where people have been orchestrating for a while. It's not a new concept anymore. You don't have to convince people that you need to orchestrate things and that there's ways that you can structure products to go and do these things. But we're still thinking about it as an acronym and not as just a fundamental set of requirements. To me, it's a little bit, if we were thinking about some IT primitives that like at one point were really, really cutting edge, like virtual machines, right? And when somebody describes their environment, they don't spend 20 minutes going, over how the virtual machine is structured and like, what kind of APIs it has and what kind of like features and blah, blah, blah. Now it's just, yeah, we get it, right? I need compute. People talk about compute, not directly often about a virtual machine. So all this to say, I think a lot of people are so used to thinking in terms of that acronym that it ends up restricting how they think about assembling that in their own environment. They don't think in terms of, what exactly do I need to have orchestrated? What matters? What part of my infrastructure needs to what other part of my infrastructure? What's the requirement behind that? They think, I need SOAR. So there's a checkbox on my list that says SOAR, and I have to check it. And if I check it, I will be safe. And that is exactly where we don't want to be, right? We don't want to be thinking in terms of checkboxes. We want to be thinking in terms of fundamental requirements.
Yeah.
So
Instead of understanding the problem and the best way to solve it, you're thinking about which product can solve this problem that I'm having.
Exactly. And it's which product. And the reality is a lot of those products don't have to be products anymore, right? And maybe that's a contentious statement, but my firm belief is that a lot of the categories, a lot of the acronym in cybersecurity don't have to be products. They're really features at that point, right? They used to be products because they were, brand new, very unique, and they had, 500 features going along with it. And then we've kind of now figured out, what's the 30 features you actually need, like really actually matter. But because we're still stuck thinking in terms of SOAR, in terms of, that acronym, it limits a lot of the possibilities that we see in front of us, right? If your first thing is, I'm going to buy this thing, and now, what use do I make of this thing? That's very limiting compared to going the other way around and saying like, okay, what's the fundamental things I'm trying to solve? And it turns out that part of the automation is now built into all these other products, and I don't necessarily need that. It's a feature. It's not a product.
Mm-hmm. Would a good analogy be like, you mentioned IT earlier. Would a good analogy be like, 15 years ago, if you wanted a database, you had to go to Oracle and get this product, whereas now you just go into AWS and you have a S3 bucket or Google bucket, and these things just become features of the platform.
Exactly, right? Like you go to DynamoDB just to get some kind of NoSQL database. For most people, you don't necessarily care so much about what's the brand name behind it. It's because, you're not, if you go to, what is it? I'm not a big AWS guy, ironically, but like, I think Redshift, I want to say on AWS, right? Like if you go to that, you're probably not getting, all the features of like Oracle database G512B or whatever it's called. But the reality is, do you need that, right? So it's that same kind of like mentality.
Yeah, you're also not getting the contracts and the sales cycle and all that stuff either, though, right?
Oh, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Which is kind of the next question I have was to say like, having this product focused approach to thing makes things messy on the technical side because you've got to integrate all these different things, and it's kind of a black box. You don't always understand what's happening, but it also creates a huge amount of overhead for the business. I think it was Gartner that said the average enterprise has 70 tools, and each one of those probably has a different vendor, contracts that need to be negotiated, and whatever else. So it's a problem that people have tried to solve, but I don't think they've done it in a great way. And in your talk, you referred to this as the Pokemon approach. Can you explain what you mean by this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a response from people in the industry. It's a natural response from people in the industry to the evolution of complexity in cybersecurity, right? So the summary version of that approach in my mind is, the joke is you have to collect them all, right? So, hey, I need to do security at company X because company X got hacked last week, and we just got of it and realized security is a thing. Okay, what's the list of acronym that I need to get? And I got to collect them all. I'm going to go one by one. I'm going to go see like 10 vendors, and I'm going to get a quote, and then I'm going to kind of do the whole thing. And that's fine in the sense that it's, look, I don't think anybody's to blame, right? It's an evolution of the industry. But let me put it this way. I always make the comparison with AWS because I think they're many years ahead of us, us meaning cybersecurity. But imagine today if you looked at a, average company that has tech that they build in AWS, and you said, okay, we're going to go and look at every single API, like everything that you use in AWS. And we're going to say, you know what, we need a vendor for that, right? What is my managed MySQL vendor? What is my NoSQL database vendor? What's my virtual database vendor? What's my storage, like block storage vendor? What's my managed queue vendor? Like if we lined all of those up, right? Just kill me. Like this is awful. And so I think we can kind of tell the overhead that would be. Yet, if we flip to cybersecurity, now we're kind of blind in a weird way to like that exact same suite of problems, and it's awful, I think, for everybody. Now, thankfully, I think we have our older brother in tech that we can look forward and go like, okay, that's a solved problem. Like, how does that work? Like, where does that go?
So yeah, I'm curious what you think an ideal solution looks like. And here I kind of feel like maybe I'm turning this into a commercial for the SecOps Cloud platform, but obviously we think this way. So I just would like you to kind of talk about how you think we solve this problem properly.
Yeah. And that's the right way to frame it, right? Like you said, like, obviously we believe, we do what we believe, right? So let's not hide it. That being said, fundamentally, we can easily talk about the direction without talking about the specific solution, which is let's do that, right? So the right way to do that is to look. There's a long way to describe a cloud provider, but it's really the long way of describing a cloud provider, which the characteristics that are kind of important. I think maybe that's the best way to add value to the discussion, is that the cloud provider is not just about the product, right? Offering a product to somebody and making it easy to buy. Like, certainly it's part of it, but it's the structure of like how you view that product and how you make it and who you make it accessible to. So how you view the product means that you're not looking at the product as a fully opinionated, like, this is, the thing, right? If you're looking at accumulating a bunch of products and each product is highly opinionated, what I mean by that is, the product tells you these are the 3 ways that you can go and do X. And, here's the GUI to do it. And this is the only way you do it. Put it in, like, let's say SIM or like ticketing terms, right? Like, well, an incident is like the first level of thing, and then you can promote it to an alert. And then alerts can be assigned to a single person that's the owner of that alert. And, like, those are kind of all opinions about how you run ticketing or the process of doing a SIM and ticketing in a company. So you have to be unopinionated. And that is to enable people, to enable organizations using these to get those pieces of the puzzle that they use to connect easily. If everything is highly opinionated, no 2 people have the exact same opinion, right? No 2 products have the exact same opinion, and that's how you end up with trouble. So that's a lesson that IT's learned, right, over the years, when you have things like APIs and JSON and ways of kind of interconnecting systems. So having their highly unopinionated product. The other part is who you make it available to. And what that means is, if we all have different products that live in very different places, right? My SIM lives on-prem. My EDR lives in some kind of cloud. I don't know, like, it's in the cloud, but it's managed by like that vendor. And nothing else. It's a black box to me. And my XDR lives also in the cloud somewhere else. That's a different black box to me. And, each one of those, offers like a very limited set of APIs because they're highly opinionated. And that what that brings is it forces new players in the space to go and do the exact same thing, meaning to create their own, walled castle, like opaque black box thing. And that's just perpetuating the current type of ecosystem that we have. So what you want is you want to have these capabilities fundamentally open to everybody. So you want this to be a sandbox. And I don't just mean here's a sandbox that's available to, everybody, where the definition of everybody is all companies with more than 20,000 endpoints willing to pay more than $1 million a year in 5 years contract. That's not everybody, right? I really mean everybody, right? And look, AWS, if you have a credit card, you're on AWS, right? If I build something in AWS and you build something on AWS, we're talking the same language. We're understanding the same concept. It's not that we have the same opinion, but at least we're in the same, dimension of reality is how I see it, right? Like we're in the same physical landscape. And that allows us then to start building on top of each other. And when I say on top, I really mean like in a positive way, right? It allows somebody that builds this great solution to do observability for like Kubernetes in AWS to start playing with this other company that like builds, data lakes in AWS, right? They're in the same dimension. They can start playing with each other a lot more easily. And now if I'm starting a new company, I don't have to rebuild all IT from scratch. I can fundamentally say, you know what, I'm going to play in the AWS like ecosystem with these APIs and these APIs, and we kind of all understand each other. And now, we don't have to rebuild it all. So that is the other part that we really need here.
Yeah, it's like we all become a part of the same fabric. And speaking to your comment on the unopinionated part, I could see the highest measure of success being when people start to build things for which the people that put the building blocks together never even saw as a possibility.
That is exactly right. That's exactly right. Otherwise, I often kind of put it in those words, but I don't want, there's so many bright people in security that that are just amazing and have such interesting ideas. And when the barrier of entry for them to do pretty much anything is, well, you got to go and raise $5 million so you can rebuild the exact same part of the stack as everybody else. That just kills me inside because that is unmet potential, right? Like those people just won't, or they'll be very limited by what they do. Whereas I think that has been the beauty of cloud providers is it's lowered the bar for everybody. It's meant everybody can play together. And that is what has driven innovation forward.
Yeah, and the outcome from that benefits everybody. And in the terms of cybersecurity, it's going to be the mission. We're all going to live safer, better lives because we have the smartest people able to have an impact in the world without needing to go get funding and have a VC and all that kind of stuff involved at those early stages.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter what the vendor is. No vendor has a monopoly on great ideas and the best people and, has some kind of like magic solution that somehow is going to solve all of people's problem on earth for security. And now, now it's the checkbox that ruled them all. And now everybody's safe, right? It's just not going to happen. What's going to happen is people with great ideas, pushing ideas forward and making it really, really hard for attackers to be able to keep having kind of the attacker's advantage.
The checkbox to rule them all. I think we might have to figure out how that becomes a t-shirt.
I love it.
Yeah, so LimaCharlie makes a SecOps cloud platform, which is an approach like what we've been talking about. And it does a lot of the things you would expect, log ingestion, EDR, but it also has a bunch of capabilities that I think are pretty unique. So I'd love to talk about a few of those if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the one I want to talk about first is the endpoint bus as a service. I think this really speaks to what you were saying earlier about not having to reinvent the wheel, and I think it's super cool. So do you want to explain what that is and how it's different from anything out there?
Sure, absolutely. So it's different from anything out there, but it's also an extension of how other people have thought about other aspects, right? So here's what it is, and let's start from there. So endpoint bus as a service is us making the statement that if you go and you talk to people in the industry, everybody wants one more agent, right? Like I think that's the one, right? Everybody wants more agents. I remember hearing that all the time. So. Clearly tongue in cheek. The idea is, a lot of people want to do things that require an agent. And when I say that, I really mean it in a very kind of vague and unopinionated way, right? They need to see things happening on an endpoint, and they need to make things happening as a response on an endpoint. That's kind of like the vaguest statement that's really the ground truth. And so I've over the years talked to so many people, again, that had those great ideas, looked at, hey, I think I might start a business, and then looked at, I need to have an agent on all the platforms out there. Ouch, right? That's one of those kind of pivoting point where, okay, you're going to have to go and raise a couple $1 million to start building the really big thing.
Mac OS, Windows, Linux, the different kernels, the different, like, there's so many things involved in that. It's more than just the 3 operating systems. There's like layers to that.
Oh yeah. If I had a nickel for every time a megacorp told me we're going to build it ourselves and told me that a few years in a row when couldn't make it happen, I wouldn't be that wealthy, but it'd be interesting. So that agent, right? Yeah, we why do we need to rebuild the whole thing? It's such a difficult problem. It's also such a non-differentiated problem, right? And meaning there was a point in time where EDR, for example, right, was the hotness, right? It was the secret sauce. And I don't know, for me, it's like Carbon Black is what sticks in my mind, right? Like the first real big EDR. But that's not the case anymore. And there's a lot of different use cases that people have that require that presence, but that cannot use that presence when it's provided in a highly opinionated way. Here's what I mean. One could say, hey, I have an antivirus, right? And it's deployed on like all of these endpoints. It's an agent. Let's reuse that. That's fine, but what happens when you don't want that antivirus, right? Where I want the agent presence to be able to get, DNS and NetFlow information from the endpoint, and I'm going to do some like really clever analysis in the cloud, do some detection, and then in real time go and kill network connections and things like that in response. Now my barrier or the barrier of entry to my potential customers is, well, you need to have that antivirus installed. You need to be a paying customer of that antivirus customer, right? Like there's kind of a bunch of opinions that come with that. And that's problematic. It's kind of like saying, to use EC2 in AWS, I have to use, like Salt Stack, and like it has to be Red Hat, and I need like Prometheus monitoring on that, and you're like, okay, well, now that's a lot of assumptions based on what I want to do. So very problematic. Fundamentally, what we're doing is we're saying, you know what, we have an agent. We're going to look at the core of those, those minimal kind of requirements in terms of opinion. and we're going to build that in. And then we're going to allow people to go and augment that. So that means the core is really kind of, connection to the cloud. It's got to be bidirectional. It's got to be real time, has to provide obviously encryption, authentication, and identity, right? Like being able to identify a specific agent. But that's about it. And we are building our own platform in that ecosystem ourselves, right? So we have an EDR like in LimaCharlie, and it uses endpoint bus as a service ourselves. So all we're really doing is we're opening that up. So now if you're doing that, that network connectivity analysis stuff, you could build your own, module. It could be your own intellectual property, and you could go and deploy it through our agent. It doesn't require our EDR to be deployed or any of those things, but it can be there. And beyond that, you also get the same kind of philosophy applied to a lot of the processing in the cloud. So, right, if you're building that networking thing, the next thing you're going to think about is, okay, now I'm going to get like a bunch of these events in the cloud, and like I need to, do slightly different things depending on the event that's coming back from the endpoint, or you need to do this and that analysis. A lot of those use cases are pretty generic. And again, we're building that sandbox for ourselves, and now we're making it open for everybody that wants to build things. We're not saying you have to build exactly, the same thing that we do kind of thing. We're just highly opinionated, opening it up so that we can drive, again, more innovation, like more people building cool things, building cool products, going to market with those products, right? That's kind of the other part of this is if we required like, the LimaCharlie EDR has to be there, then it means you're trying to build a company. Well, like the barrier of entry is the cost of an EDR to every single customer. That won't fly. Mm-hmm. And so we're OEM friendly is kind of how we say it. So that means you can build a product on top of LimaCharlie and kind of do it however, at very different economics.
Yeah. Yeah. The pricing such that there's a big enough margin for you to make your own business on top of that.
Exactly.
And as you mentioned, we've built our EDR on top of endpoint bus as a service. And a byproduct of that is we've been able to make a really cool new product within the EDR space that we're calling sleeper mode. Do you want to talk about that and what the benefits of that are? And sorry, I know I'm turning this into a commercial now.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, here's what's cool about this for me, right? Like minus the pitch side of things, like look, the value will sell itself. That's fine. Here's what makes me really happy about this. It's that all the things I'm talking about, like, hey, we need, this kind of open sandbox, and people need to be able to play, and things need to be unopinionated, and APIs. If you want an exact sort of classic outcome of those types of environments, to me, like sleeper mode is one of those, right? Where we never thought about it this way. It's not like we planned it, over like a 5-year development plan, and like we're going to have this feature build around like blah, 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 this API and this thing. We just built the Lego blocks, right? We built the environment. We built the things unopinionated. And then what we ended up with is at some point kind of sitting back and having that realization of like, I guess we kind of built this thing without realizing that this thing was possible, right? If you put these things together, now you end up with something completely different. And so to kind of like describe it exactly, the whole point of sleeper mode is if you think of endpoint bus as a service and you're saying, there's this agent, but by default, like fundamentally, it doesn't have to do anything, right? You kind of tell it what to do. It means like, okay, we have this agent that it can live, and it will have identity, right? Like here's the identity of that endpoint, and it's going to connect to the cloud. We're going to be able to talk to it bidirectionally, whenever we need it. And we have this whole pipeline like in the cloud to like manage the life cycle of, what gets loaded where. Well, that means we could deploy those agents pretty much everywhere for next to nothing, right? Which is like the first time you kind of think about it, it's like, it's not necessarily obvious, right? But it's like, yeah, it's like a little bit of nothing deployed everywhere that doesn't really do anything. Okay, fine. But it means that we get to choose when we want it to load something interesting, right? When we want it to now behave as an EDR. And when we kind of connected those dots, the thought wasn't, hey, how do we monetize, the hell out of like, what's the 1 penny limit that we can possibly charge everybody, where like the whole product is around that sleeper mode thing. We kind of looked at it from the perspective of like, well, it costs next to nothing for it to run. Let's make that possible for users and see what people do with it. And so that's what we did, right? We built the sleeper mode, and we said, well, if you deploy the agent and, you put a tag on that sensor, that tag is like sleeper. Well, nothing's going to load on there, and it's just going to be there. And you're going to get billed like, per second connected, but it's like, I forget what our pricing is. It's next to nothing. And when people want, they can, remove that tag, and now like it can behave as an EDR, and they can go and do more things. And it's super cool because what we kind of saw is a bunch of people connecting the dots in their own specialization, right? Look, first one is like IR people connected the dots really, really fast, where they went like, well, I talk to customers all the time. They don't like having agents deployed that take a bunch of resources. Maybe they already have an antivirus and they're happy with it, right? Don't want to pay for the cost of an EDR. They don't see the value, whatever. And they don't want the resource consumption there. But at the same time, there's a huge barrier when there's an incident, because when there's an incident, what's our playbook say? Spend 2 days going and talking to the sysadmins, trying to get the thing deployed across all of their network. And that's just time wasted. It's like resources, all that stuff. So, well, if we go and we deploy this thing that does nothing, it doesn't consume resources. Okay, that's good. And we can do this when there's no fire. The house is not on fire. We can take our time. We can get people to go and deploy it. And everybody, it's simple. Everybody is happy about it. That's good. And the day that something happens, we're not called when there's a fire to go and try to deploy the thing as quickly as possible. We have the sort of the luxury of saying, hey, where's your concern in the company? Oh, you think somebody, something happened in the finance department. Okay, let's light up the finance department for an hour. We're going to go do our investigation, see what's happening. And when that's done, then we'll just put it back to sleep, assuming that everything was fine. And if it's not, then again, in a couple of seconds, we'll light up the whole company, and we'll be able to kind of go and do like all the cool, hunting side of things. But to be able to offer this, it's a thing that's not really offered. It's sort of like offered in weird contractual ways by some vendor. What I mean is like, oh, you can totally go and deploy, tool X for free, except that, it's with the understanding that they're going to try to convert that customer to like their MDR service, like when they need something or something hits the fan. And now you're just a schmuck that went and installed the product for the big vendor, right? That's not cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this one. I know one of our customers has an SLA of 20 minutes for their customers on retainer, and I just think that's unmatched in what a competitive advantage for them, right?
That's right.
Okay, so the final capability I want to talk about is one that I think is not inherent in many cybersecurity products, if any, and that's sort of data observability and optimization. Can you explain what this is and how LimaCharlie does this?
Yeah. So this one's kind of interesting for slightly from a different perspective. I think it connects a lot more to earlier when we were talking about, what's a product and what's a feature. And again, as we built LC, right, in an unopinionated way and kind of built all those capabilities, I think we kind of stumbled across a bunch of those use cases where, look, we're not saying we're an observability product, right? Like LimaCharlie doesn't do like, donut dashboards and, pretty graphs kind of thing. That's not our niche. But there's a lot of use cases that we found that just kind of emerge out of the capabilities that we have. And so I think that's really like essentially that characteristics of LC, which is we always had the capability to go and say, hey, I've got like all this data coming into LC. Maybe I've got some EDR, I've got some Defender, I've got some like Office 365 audit logs, I've got this and that, like all data flows in. And we always had that capability to say, hey, you know what? Take this event from Windows Defender and, send it to X. And because our approach, again, is very unopinionated for us, when we do that kind of forwarding, we're not looking at it as what's the product that I'm sending this to, right? We're kind of, I think we should be past that at this point in cybersecurity as well as we already are in tech, meaning it's not about what's at the other end. It's about the technology used to send something, right? So if we send data into S3, we don't care what's at the other end consuming it. We're just going to make it as easily digestible as possible. And we're going to put it in a generic way in S3. We're going to do the same thing in Kafka. Like, it doesn't matter. And so we had this ability to go and send data out, right? Stream data outside as it came in. And we realized that there's very little needed for us to kind of add a little bit to that and add transforms into this. And we had this automation engine as well, right? Like, we've got an automation engine that runs like at wire speed. And we realized that, well, sometimes you don't want to send all events of like, I don't know, DNS, from Defender into some other system. Sometimes you want to be really, really narrow. Then you say, well, we've got this automation engine. It's generic, can kind of plug into anything. We've got this output layer and it's generic. That's great. So let's just make it so that now we can create automation rules that say, hey, this one event based on whatever set of criteria you care about, right? Like, we're unopinionated. You can go and have it sent to this one output. That's what we call like the forwarding, right? To like a webhook here or a Kafka there. And then we layered on top of that, very kind of simple language to do transformation over this data. Because again, we said like, we're right in that layer. Okay, well, now I don't want the whole Defender DNS data, right? I don't know, it's like 2 kilobytes per like DNS request. Probably the worst size of the original event to the final size. Yeah. So we said, okay, well, maybe, all I care about is like the host name and then the anonymized domain name. And like, that's the thing I care about. And that's what I want to send out. And so using the transports to go and apply that. And again, as you kind of connect all those dots, right? Like you use these unopinionated layers together, what you end up with is the ability to say, you know what, the picture of my infrastructure before this was, I have, I don't know, 100 different sources of telemetry. Each of them is engineered to go into Splunk specifically. And I pay $1 million a year for Splunk. I have everything available at all times for my entire retention period, like flat. And now you can start looking at it very differently, where you say, well, collecting the telemetry doesn't have to be baked in 100% with, where it ends up being. And the parts of the telemetry that I care about automating stuff with doesn't have to be the same as retaining long-term. And, my compliance tool doesn't need the bulk of the information available from this tool. It really just needs these bits. And now you can start really optimizing a lot about the usage you make of these other tools. And it turns out that's a very valuable thing for a lot of people, right? Because now instead of paying $1 million a year of flat retention with Splunk for like 3 months of retention, maybe you're down to paying like $10,000 a year with, a year of full retention plus like 3 months of what you actually need to go and do in Splunk, right? So it really, actually, it's a great example of not thinking about the acronym. In this case, I'd say like data lake, right? Like data lake isn't the thing you need. The thing you need is the use case, right? Well, I need this type of information easily available in a data lake. Okay, now you can walk back and build a stack that is infinitely better, pretty much, through every metric. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, and I'll stop. I want to keep going and talk about all the amazing like features and the nuances of how we're good and we save money and all that stuff. But I think we've really covered the philosophy at a high level, and I think we've demonstrated a couple examples that really highlight the kind of things that are possible with this approach.
And I'll jump in just for a sec, because look, I mean, obviously, like we said, right? Like we build the stuff that we like and that we believe in. That being said, all the things that we talked about, they're not secret sauce, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're not saying I have this magic blockchain AI ML thing that detects all the bad guys. It's very kind of open technology. And so the kind of the thing I'll put in the world is we think that this is the way to build the future and it's really cool. If you agree, like, yeah, if you want to come with us, like, that's fine, right? We're on the bus, we're going that direction. But I think it's super exciting to see other people also going in that direction. So, don't think about this as, well, I guess LimaCharlie has the one, magic thing, as much as, yeah, I like the way that they're thinking and the direction that it's going. And hopefully other people will follow suit, right? Just like cloud providers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love it. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like a fabric, and it doesn't mean that we're every component of that. It's a philosophy where this future can exist, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, the SecOps cloud platform doesn't stop where it is today. What's the long-term vision? How does this thing grow? What's the final form? Is there a final form?
That's a great. Yeah, is there a final form? Final form, isn't that like Pokemon language too? Right?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, two references.
Got that.
And I'll let you know that our director of marketing made it very clear to me that I should not say Pokemon and that it's Pokemon. I think I missed that a little bit. I'm a little bit older than that generation, so thank you, Charlton, for the heads up.
Same here. I know of it. I was never really a huge into that stuff. Yeah. So what's the where's it going? What's the final form? So it's a great question. And I would kind of describe it functionally. What I mean by that is, like, it's not an absolute, it's a way of thinking about its evolution. So the way of thinking about its evolution is, as cybersecurity keeps growing, keeps reflecting upon itself, right? Like I talk about it all the time, like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, right? I think it's beautiful. Look, people can debate about the nuance and what part is valuable or not, but the fact that as an industry we're really going forward and putting a pretty much standard, saying this is how we think about the various techniques and the forms of attacks, and we're putting structure around it. That's great. So as we keep doing that, more and more of what's done becomes old news. Right. So there's a lot about innovation. So a lot of things are going to be super cutting edge. I kind of joke, like, tongue in cheek about like secret sauce and all that. But a lot of people do have secret sauce, and like very rightfully so. Right. Like that's the innovative stuff. But as we keep going, there's a point where the secret sauce is 10 years old, and everybody knows that it's like, I don't know, ketchup and some peppers or something. And when that happens, the SecOps cloud platform, which is kind of like this vision and philosophy we're kind of putting forward, starts to embed those things. not in their original form, right? It's not about like replicating that thing that was cutting edge. It's kind of about looking at that thing that was cutting edge and saying, okay, now it's been 10 years. Where's the big value behind that? What are the use cases that people, need to use day in, day out that don't necessarily have to be a standalone product? And those slowly get incorporated, as primitives into a SecOps cloud platform. They become boring is really kind of how I think about it. So as they become boring, they are transformed in a way and start being adopted so that people can build from that. As I'm kind of saying it like out loud, I'm kind of thinking in terms of like the patent system, right? Some of the drive behind the patent system is to get people talking about what they do and how they do it will protect them. But eventually this has to benefit everybody, right? So this has to kind of go back to all the things that society can build on top of. So that's the type of relationship that I can see. So, where does it go? I mean, it's kind of, saying anybody's guess is not the right way to put it. But I think everybody can kind of think about, let's say, the 2-3 categories in cybersecurity that you go like, oh yeah, I remember when that was new, 5-10 years ago. And I kind of wish I didn't have to deal with a whole vendor behind it, because really these days, all I care about are like these 10 use cases. And that's exactly like where it goes. And then on the positive side of like that, the other side of that equation is more and more cool stuff gets built, and it gets built quickly, right? So if it takes you raising $10 million and 5 years to test an idea, few people will test that idea. But if you say, you know what, it's going to cost you like $10 and 6 months on your weekends. This is pretty cool. And then you can see, is there value behind that, and just, keep moving forward. So I'm excited by this.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. And since we're talking about LimaCharlie, something pretty exciting happened recently, didn't it?
That's right. I'm assuming you're talking about the raise.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Is it?
Why don't you tell us what happened and how that's going to help us move towards this goal of growing this platform and kind of changing the way cybersecurity is done?
Absolutely. So yes, we raised our Series A, which is kind of a big milestone for us. It I think demonstrates to some folks that it's not just a wild idea, that it's kind of the obvious thing that's going to be tomorrow. And it's a testament, I would say, as well, to all of the users that have been on LimaCharlie. Some a lot since the really long time, since the very early days where the vision was not obvious at all, which is kind of cool. And so we raised $10 million as a Series A. And what it's going to allow... Sorry,
I don't mean to jump in, but 10.2, I don't want to be a stickler.
I'm sorry. I round it. So yeah, we raised $10 million mostly from existing investors, which again is really good, because we've always been very transparent that, look, this is the vision that we want to build. We're not looking for the quick out to sell to, name your big vendor in the next year, right? Like, we're really here to try to make that a reality. So it's really inspiring to work with people that you talk to and go like, yep, this is where I want you to go to, and let's make it happen. So for us, it means expansion, right? So yeah, we're going to be expanding across pretty much every conceivable axis you can think of. Around people. So we'll be expanding our teams around products, around name it, right? Like the technology, like the use cases, like everything's going to be moving forward. we will be releasing this year some new big primitives. And again, we're kind of putting our money where our mouth where our money is. No,
where our mouth is.
Money where our mouth is. Yeah. So
yeah.
the Frenchie in me kind of comes out a little bit. So yeah, it's we're going to be releasing those, and I think it'll be very cool for people to see that we're going to keep helping them, reduce the number of vendors, simplify their stack, less management, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really exciting to be a part of. And, I really love thinking about the bigger mission and the kind of impact we can have on that. And it's a real honor. So the last one I have for you, it's the one I ask of everybody on the show. It can be as wide or as narrow as you want. You don't have to talk about the SecOps cloud platform. Do you have any predictions of the future for cybersecurity?
Yes. Now that you mentioned it, I have heard you ask that question. I should have prepared. Yes, I think. I think there's another large trend that's going on that may not be obvious to people, and I think it's going to keep going in that way. And that trend is a movement from the entirely Wild West ecosystems to very highly gated ecosystems. I'm not putting a value on whether that's good, that's bad, that's great, who should own it or not. I just think it's a reality that because more and more of what we do uses technology. I don't care if you're a hairdresser, right? Like you still have to deal with technology. It might be for your website, it might be for like the way you do billing, like all that stuff, right? So there's more and more of those. And the value that historically we got from the Wild West ecosystem, what I mean by that is like, the Windows PC of the early 2000s, let's say, right? Where nothing needed digital signatures. You could run any code you want on your computer. It could go into kernel. Yeah, go wild. Do whatever you want. There's a lot of value behind that, but I think what we're seeing with things like iOS, like Chrome OS, to Mac OS, to a lesser extent, a little bit Windows, is that it's a funnel that's coming in to kind of a single point, which is we have to put some boundaries on it so that we don't want to have to do cybersecurity in the Wild West. We want to have to do cybersecurity in a manageable way. And that's probably the biggest way to do it in or the most scalable way to do it in a manageable way is to say, we do need, file signature. We do need to have more tightened ecosystems. So I think it's going to keep going that direction. 10 years from now, Mac OS and iOS are the exact same thing. About the other ones, we'll see, but it's going to go in that direction.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. I just saw Jen Easterly speak to Congress and talking about accountability for app developers and hardware makers and how there hasn't been accountability and there needs to be. And I feel like, from the operational and technical side, it makes sense. But I think from the legislation side, too, we're going to see a lot of pressure towards those thin clients and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like I just kind of threw a discussion grenade with this in the sense that there's so many splinter discussions from that are super interesting, the ramifications. But yeah.
Awesome. Wow, we went the whole time. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Max. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and very exciting to be on this journey with you, my friend.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Take care, sir.